Hi, Dylan. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Much, Mary. Thank you very much, Mary, and everyone here. You are so much welcome. Awesome. Today is a wonderful day, and I would want to welcome and thank you all for attending our effective lobbying workshop today. This is part of our skills and workshop series that is open to all members of the Canadian Federation of Students, as said early on by Mary. And in today's session, we will understand the importance of lobbying through the power of our voice. Lobbying is one of the best tools we have as student movements to advance our campaign, demands, and advocacy efforts. Throughout this workshop, we will explore how to identify and articulate our goals clearly, communicate our message with confidence, and not just maintain a positive relationship with the decision maker in the room, but hopefully build one for future conversations. And by the end of this session, we are all going to have the practical tools needed to drive collective action with purpose and intention. Now to our facilitator. The very first time I met this facilitator, it was awesome. Billian Arte, I stand to be corrected with the name, is a Black Muslim feminist who lives and works in the unceded and never surrounded traditional territories of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Billion is an award-winning activist and organizer with over 15 years of experience in campaigns, leadership, and movement building. She holds a master's degree in public administration from the University of Ottawa and also used to be a national chairperson for two consecutive terms, that is 2016 and 2018. In all aspects of her work, Billion is fueled by the passion for social justice and equity. Billion, thank you so much for joining us today. On this note, I'll pass it on to Billion to take us through what we are supposed to do. And it's wonderful meeting you again. Thank you.
Wonderful to see you again as well, David. Thank you for that very warm introduction and welcome. And thank you to everyone who helped organize this space today. In particular, thank you, Vanessa, for the invitation and all of the staff that are here as well, helping to organize in the background. As was mentioned, my name is Billa and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm going to lead a workshop today for you around effective lobbying. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down into two different parts. The first, we're just going to review some best practices and what we should be doing in order to better prepare ourselves for example, your upcoming National Lobby Week. And then we're going to do some practice sessions together. We're going to do a couple of exercises. So I hope you're settled in and ready for a bit of an interactive session today, as I would love to hear from you folks and have an opportunity to be able to practice some of our lobbying skills by the end of this session. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. And as was mentioned, there is a French version of this slide deck. So if you are French speaking or you prefer to follow along in French, you can choose to do so. Et puis aussi, je suis bilingue. Alors, s'il y a des questions ou des commentaires que vous voudriez faire en français, je suis heureuse de les prendre dans la langue de votre choix. So if you would like
If
to
you
ask
have
any
questions
questions
in
or have any
English, I can
discussions
take them
in the language of your
also in
choice, I'm happy
French.
to do that in either English or French. So let's get started. So let's start about effective lobbying. And just quickly, by show of hand reactions, I can see the participant list. Can you tell me if you have lobbied before? This could be a member of parliament that represents your region, a municipal government representative, or even a member of your provincial legislative assembly. So just by show of hands, I'd love to see Okay, so we have about 7 people that have raised their hands. That's great. So there's some experience in the room, which is awesome. So if you have any sort of feedback or thoughts you want to share from your own experiences as we go along, we'll have some opportunities for that. I would love to hear that. And then one more sort of show of hands for those of you who are here today because you are registered or are thinking about applying to join the CFS for the National Lobby Week. Just a show of hands if you're planning to attend or would like to attend. I would love to see that interest as well. Okay, a number of you. That is awesome. That's wonderful. So that means that you can take what we're going to be talking about today and directly apply that to some work that you're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks as you prepare for those lobby sessions in November. So that's wonderful. Why don't we get to it? And I'm really looking forward to having more conversations with you folks. Okay, so let's start with a bit of an overview of the legislative landscape federally. So we're going to be focusing our lobbying session today around federal politics. But of course, think about how you could adapt this, and it is very adaptive to a more local or regional context. But in terms of just understanding the federal landscape, we have right now just shy of a Liberal Party majority. There are 169 members of parliament that are part of the Liberal Party of Canada, and following closely 143 members that are members of the Conservative Party, 23 members of the Bloc Québécois, 7 for the New Democratic Party, and 1 for the Green Party. And so this sort of understanding helps us kind of ground our strategy work and also understand who it is that we're speaking to, what their priorities are, and how we might be able to craft our messages to better reflect the priorities of the party that the members that we're meeting with are a part of. And so one of the first items of homework, if you haven't done it already, take a look at the party promises or the electoral platforms from this past election in April. You can still find most of them online. Take a look at what was brought up and how that might be relevant to some of the issues that you're going to be bringing forth in your advocacy work around education, post-secondary education, and the public delivery of that in particular. Take a look at what each party has said on that and use that as a basis to help to start to build a framing and strategy for how you want to bring forward some of those issues today. Next, I wanted to just briefly touch on why it's important to organize a lobby. So lobby sessions are really critical for us as progressive movements to be able to get more of our people, so more of the people that you organize with, students, student union representatives, etc., and get them to have active conversation with decision makers, in this case, members of the members of Parliament, about the issues that are affecting all of you. And so lobbying historically is a part of a larger strategy that includes ensuring that accurate research piece. And so that's the piece that we sort of touched on previously in the last slide about understanding where the political approach that is most advantageous for your issues may be coming from. It also means knowing your issues, and so being able to present them in a very informed and evidence-based approach. It's a part of a larger strategy for political advocacy, recognizing that legislatures are places where important decisions are made that impact your lives as students and as student representatives and advocates. And so it's important to be able to utilize lobbying as part of that overall strategy. And finally, it's an opportunity and tool for member mobilization. And so it's a great way to be able to bring students into the fold of political advocacy and organizing in the student movement, to be working together, not only as, student representatives who are perhaps elected to a particular role at their union, but really all students and any student could lobby. It takes a little bit of training. So you're here today, which is awesome. It takes some research and a little bit of homework. But ultimately, we have so much expertise to offer from our own lived experiences. And so lobbying is an excellent tool for member mobilization because it also puts the power back directly into the hands of students. Finally, lobbying is also a great way to access information from the government. So sometimes we're not aware of all the discussions that are happening, especially those that might be happening behind closed doors. Perhaps there are certain decision makers that are actually friendly and particularly friendly
Il y
towards your
a
issues. And
d'autres
so those
décisions qui
kind of
peuvent
things
être un
can
peu plus
come up
ouvertes. Donc,
during a
ce sont
lobby
des choses
session where
auxquelles
you
vous
might find
allez
out
être
that an
confrontés
institution
lors
that you're
d'une
interested in,
séance de
maybe the
lobbying.
Canada Student
Il y a
Grants
quelque chose
Program
qui vous
or
intéresse.
federal
Peut-être il
legislation
s'agit
that
de
can help
programmes de
students.
subvention pour les
Maybe that's
étudiants
coming
du
up as an
Canada,
agenda item on the committee meeting,
mais
but
peut-être
we
cela
didn't
va
know about
être
that yet because that
inséré
information wasn't in
dans
the
l'ordre
public
du
yet.
jour, mais on
So
ne le
those
savait pas
that
parce
type
que
of
c'était une
information can
information
come
qui
up
n'était
during
pas
lobby
publique.
sessions, and
Alors,
it
ce sont
helps
des
you
types
build
d'informations
more
qui
of that
peuvent
strategic
surgir dans
advocacy
une
approach
séance de
and a
lobbying
better
et qui
understanding of how you might
peuvent vous
utilize your
aider
government
dans
relations
votre
strategy
stratégie et
to
savoir
best
comment
suit the
utiliser
advocacy interests that
votre
you're putting
stratégie
forward.
pour donc être au
Okay.
service de la stratégie
It's
de
really important
plaidoyer
as
qui vous
well in our
intéresse.
lobbying work
Il
to
il est très
apply and
important dans le
maintain a
travail du
principled
lobbying
approach. And that means that we
d'avoir
encourage good
une approche
policies that
axée
achieve
sur
our
les
goals,
principes.
regardless of which
D'abord,
political
vous
party is
devez
putting those
encourager
forward.
les politiques
It also
efficaces qui
means that
atteignent
we're
vos
able
objectifs,
to
quels que
work
soient
with
les partis
everyone in that
politiques qui les
sense. And so
proposent.
we're putting forward
Cela
a
implique
good
que vous
faith
allez devoir
approach
travailler
to be
avec tout le
able
monde dans ce
to
sens-là
advance issues on
afin
behalf of
de
all students,
promouvoir
regardless of which
les
political party
questions
might be
qui
interested in
intéressent
working
les
with us on
étudiants
that.
au nom des étudiants, quels
It's
que
also
soient les
important to
partis
recognize that
politiques.
lobbying is a
Il est
tactic. It's
important de
one of the things
reconnaître
that
que
we
le
do
lobbying
to try to
est une
work
tactique
towards our
importante,
goals, our political
donc une chose
advocacy
que nous
goals. It
faisons
is not the
dans
goal
les
itself. And
plaidoyers.
so what that means
Enfin,
that we have to
les plaidoyers n'est
differentiate
pas
is that we
l'objectif en
use
tant que
lobbying
tel.
as
Ce
a
que
way
cela
to
veut
be
dire,
able
c'est
to
que
advance our
nous
policy
devons
agenda,
savoir que nous
but the
utilisons
lobby meeting
le
itself or the
plaidoyer
lobby
pour
session itself is
promouvoir
not the
notre
agenda. The
agenda,
agenda is being
mais
able to achieve
l'agenda
those good
serait
policies. And
être
so
à même
lobbying is one way that we get
d'atteindre
there
des bons
in
politiques. Le lobbying est
relation as
une
well with other
façon d'y
tactics, for
parvenir,
example, direct
mais cela fait
action,
partie d'un
doing
ensemble des tactiques,
rallies,
par exemple des
doing
actions
other
directes,
types of
des
lobbying, not just
manifestations,
meetings, but
d'autres
letter
types de
writing
lobbying, pas
campaigns,
seulement des
petitions, etc. It
réunions,
is
mais des
one tactic
campagnes
in our
où
advocate
vous lancez une
toolbox to
lettre, vous
advance
faites des
student advocacy
pétitions
issues.
ou des tactiques
And
pour
it's also important to
promouvoir
note that
le
we're not meeting with
plaidoyer.
politicians
Il
in
faut
this sense
savoir que
for
nous
the
ne
sake
nous
of networking.
réunissons
So this is
pas
not
avec
about putting
les
forward
politiciens tout
ourselves or
simplement
advancing
pour avoir
ourselves
du
as student
réseautage,
advocate
pour nous
representatives.
promouvoir nous
When
en
we're in
tant
a
que
lobby session, we're
représentants.
representing
Non.
a
Lorsque nous sommes
constituency.
dans une
So we're
séance de
thinking
lobbying,
about
nous
all of the
représentons
students
nos,
that, make up the
nos
constituencies
groupes
that you're a
modulaires,
part of,
c'est-à-dire
whether that be
tous
your
nos
hometown
associations
or
modulaires,
community,
tous
whether that be
les
your
étudiants,
campus,
n'est-ce pas?
the
Que
students that
ce
are in
soit
your
les campus
classroom.
universitaires, que
The
ce soit les
community
étudiants
is
qui
the
sont dans
issue that
votre
you're bringing
classe.
forward,
Et
not
ce qui est
showing
important,
up as a
c'est la
representative
communauté
for
et pas tout
yourself. And
simplement
it's not
être
about
là en tant que
networking for the
représentant. Il ne
advancement of
s'agit
those
pas de
self-interests,
réseautage
but
pour
rather making those
promouvoir les
relationships and
intérêts
connections
individuels, mais
with the
plutôt
interest of actually
pour
advancing the political
faire
advocacy
avancer
issues that make up your
les questions
strategy as a
communautaires
member of the
par
student
ces
movement.
connexions, par ce réseautage, et pour donc faire avancer la stratégie
So,
en tant que membre d'un
let's talk a
mouvement
little bit about
d'étudiants.
understanding what that
Parlons
goal
un
could look
petit
like
peu
in the
plus
context of a
sur la
lobby session,
compréhension
whether that's a
de,
virtual one
de
or an in-person
votre
meeting.
rôle
So, the
dans
goal
une
for your
séance de
lobby
lobbying,
session
que
should
ce
be
soit en
to
personne ou en
educate MPs
distanciel.
and senators about
L'objectif
your issues and
devrait être
garner
de
support for
sensibiliser
your
les députés et les
recommendations.
sénateurs à vos
This
enjeux et
point I
obtenir leur
wanted to
soutien pour
emphasize
vos
in particular
recommandations.
because
Et je voudrais
often
mettre
we
l'accent sur
think
ce
that
point parce que
our
parfois nous
members, our
pensons
legislative
que nos
members that
membres
represent us
ou
should
nos
know about all of
représentants
the public policy
devraient
issues that affect
connaître toutes les
constituency groups
politiques
like
qui
students,
ont un
but
impact
often
sur
they
le
don't.
groupe, les associations
Often you're
modulaires,
actually
mais
sharing
parfois
with
ce
them
n'est pas le cas.
information that
Parfois,
they may have
vous partagez
either
avec eux des
not been
informations
exposed to or never
qui
heard
n'a
of
pas, à
before.
laquelle ils n'ont pas
And
été
so it's
exposés
really
ou qui n'ont
important to
jamais
recognize that a
entendu avant.
huge
Donc, c'est
goal of
important
these
de
sessions is
reconnaître
even just to
que l'objectif de
educate
ces
the
séances, c'est
whether it's a
aussi
member of parliament or
d'éduquer,
a senator that you're
que ce
meeting with,
soit le membre
let
du
them know
Parlement, que
about
ce
your
soit le
issue, let them
sénateur.
understand
Vous
who you
devez
are,
leur
who your
parler de
organization
ces
is, what is the
questions, les
work that
faire
you're doing,
comprendre qui vous êtes,
and
quel est le
why is
travail de
this
votre
important for them, and
organisation
how does it
et
connect to
pourquoi
their
cela
role
est
as a
important pour
legislature. You're also there while educating to arm supportive MPs, friendly MPs, members of parliament and senators that want to support your issues. You want to arm them with the arguments and analysis that support your recommendation. So you want to make them allies. You want to turn them from friendly, supportive members of parliament to senators to allies that are going to help advance and advocate on these issues in committees in the House of Commons in the media, in different spaces of influence that they have access to. And finally, you want to build those relationships with local MPs and increase your organization's profile. And so when you're being set up in these meetings, often you're set up in meetings with representatives that are from your region. And so it's a really great opportunity to continue to advance that work at the local level as well. And that relationship is going to be really helpful on many fronts, whether it's advancing the political advocacy issues at the federal level or the national landscape, but also in maintaining those close ties and relationships locally. It means that, for example, your student union can be more connected to the federal party representative that is actually representing your constituency in the House of Commons. Having that direct link means that you can influence one another a little bit more directly, and you can have an ongoing conversation, an ongoing relationship that helps equip them as your representative to best represent your interests. So before I keep going, I just want to pause there and see. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. I want to see if there are any questions or if there's any sort of comments or feedback that folks want to share about sort of that framing of why we lobby, why it's important, and what our goals should look like. Does anybody want to share a reflection or a question around that? I can check the Q&A as well and see. You can also use the chat function. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, which is totally okay. I'll come back and check again as well. So feel free to use the Q&A or the chat function, and I can come back to the chat. Oh, there's one question. How would you balance holding politicians accountable and not breaking that relationship? That's a really good question. So follow-up is an important piece that we're going to talk about more. And so you're getting a little bit of a sneak preview, which is great. We're going to talk about what follow-up looks like after a lobby session to make sure that you're not just having that opportunity in that moment to establish a relationship, but you're thinking concretely about how to reconnect even after the meeting to help continue to advance that political strategy, that advocacy strategy that you had developed that was part of your goal. So I'm going to share some tips around that in just a moment. Thank you for that question. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and we're going to keep going to the next slide. So in terms of prep, before your meeting, it's incredibly important that you know your stuff. You know your issues, you know your recommendations, read through your lobby documents, and ask any questions that you have in advance to the folks that are there to support you. And so maybe that's some of the at-large members of the executive at the CFS that maybe have more background, some of the staff that also have a tremendous amount of background and knowledge and information around these issues. Ask the questions then that you may have as you review it so that you can feel confident and prepared in those spaces. I might ask if someone is available just in the chat to drop some of your most recent lobby documents. I'm sure folks have them on hand, but I want to make sure that you're looking at them because we're going to be using them for our exercise later. So if someone could just link the most current sort of lobby documents in the chat so that folks can already start taking a look at those if they haven't already. It can be detrimental to not have accurate information in these meetings. And so, for example, you may be posed a direct question if you're doing advocacy work around the National Student Grant Program about the history of it, as well as, what some of the trajectories have looked like under different governments. And so a member of parliament might be interested in better understanding what the historic advocacy has been on this file and how they might be able to advance that moving forward. And so it's really important in that sense that you be able to answer that question. Though I will say as well that if there's ever a question that you cannot answer, don't make something up. Don't just, try to answer the question. The best answer, if you don't have accurate information or you're not aware of because it is possible that there's a question that you don't have access to the information to, even with all of the preparation work that you've done, note it down. Say that you'll get back to them, thank them for the question, say, I will get back to you. And now you actually even have a great opportunity to be able to follow up and reconnect with that member of parliament or that senator after your meeting. As per our discussion, this was your question. Here is a more sort of fulsome response that you can craft with the support of your of staff or at-large executive, or even in your own research. Get the accurate information, do the follow-up, and now you've also sort of demonstrated that you are a valuable relationship to them that can provide accurate and reliable information. And that is much better than making something up that is not accurate or that isn't actually founded on the analysis that you want to be putting forward to that decision maker. Because again, remember, when we talked about why we do this work, it's an opportunity to educate and frame the issues in the analysis that we want. And so we want to make sure that even when we're getting back on questions that we are answering later on, that we're still applying that same framework and we're putting forward the analysis that best supports our arguments. It's also important in the research aspect before your meeting, know the MP or senator. It's very easy to find bios now for members of parliament or senators. Read it in advance. Get a sense of who they are as a person. Maybe their bio tells you something about them that you can use as an angle to pitch the proposals in a way that they will relate to. So for example, if you know that they have children that are, whether they're young or they're older children that'll be entering post-secondary, perhaps in the near future, you can craft your proposal in light of that, in light of sort of recognizing that they are probably a parent who is also thinking about what post-secondary will look like for their child and is invested in that. And so talk about it in that way. Think about how you can use any of that biographical information, what they might have championed before, what they ran on in their platform. If you can watch old videos of interviews that they've done, get to know who they are, their style, what they're interested in, and try to match that in the framing for the proposals that you're putting forward. And then finally, before the meeting, connect with the folks that you are meeting with and figure out together what is something that we want to walk away from this meeting from. Is it a commitment that they are going to raise this issue in a committee that they are a part of? For example, in our research, we know that this member is part of the HUMA committee, or this other committee that is of interest for our advocacy agenda. And so as part of our proposal, we are going to ask for explicit support that they will bring up this issue in this context, or they will bring up this issue as a question during question period in the House of Commons, etc. Or even a commitment could also be something as simple as a request for information, that they let you know when something might be coming up in discussion, that they get back to you about their priority areas in one particular sort of aspect of your proposal. Figure out what that ask is and embed it in your proposals, because you don't want to just present and not get any type of commitment or something to follow up on after the meeting as well. And so you want something that you can use as a follow-up tool to be able to come back to that member of parliament or senator, a week or 2 weeks down the road to say, thank you so much for meeting with us. It was great to hear your support for XYZ. We would love to have a follow-up discussion or a follow-up meeting with you about this commitment that you made. How can we best support you about this question that you said you would raise in the House of Commons, or this issue that you said you would put on the agenda for the next committee meeting, etc. When you're walking into the meeting, so now you're there, whether it's an in-person or virtual, make sure you are going in as a team. So that means connecting prior to make sure that you are organized, that everybody's on time, everybody has what they need, and is feeling ready and confident to get started, and everyone knows what their role is during the meeting. You should meet in advance to figure out who is going to take the lead on what during the discussion. So for example, a meeting would look like some form of introduction, talk about who you are, where you're coming from, and which organization you're with. The focus of your meeting in a 30-minute meeting scenario would be your proposals. That's where you're spending the vast majority of your time. And then you want to hear from them. What are they committing to? What are their plans? What are their priorities in these areas? So think about if you have, 3 people, maybe you divide this into 3 sections, and one of you leads on introductions. We are the Canadian Federation of Students. Here's a bit about our organization. Here are my colleagues. We're looking forward to connecting with you. Thanks for meeting with us. Somebody else says, here's our proposal. Here's our lobby document. Here's our leave behind. And someone else says, we would love to know, now that we've told you a bit about our proposals, what you think, where you see some opportunities for working together. How can we collaborate and get this done? So divide it in whatever way makes the most sense. Use the strengths of the people who are in that space. Talk about it in advance so that when you walk into the meeting, virtual or in person, you're organized and ready to go. And then make sure you're taking notes. So somebody's task should also be note-taking, making sure that you're keeping track of who is at the meeting, including staff. So it is really important to know who the staff members are who are going to be in that meeting, because often MPs or senators, they're going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. They are meeting with lots of constituents. They're hearing lots of concerns. And so the staff might be a really great relational point for you as an advocate to be able to connect back with and know who to talk to that might be aiding that decision maker in understanding their priorities as well. And so in that sense, making those positive relationships with staff can be just as important as the positive relationship that you're hoping to build with the decision maker. You want to make sure if the member of parliament or senator makes a commitment, write it down, note it. There should be a plan organizationally for you to communicate that back as well to the larger lobby organization. And so make sure that if you do get a commitment, you write it down so that you can provide follow-up. And the follow-up should look something like a written communication that says, thank you so much for meeting with us. It was great to hear your support on XYZ. It was great to hear your commitment on this. How can we support you in this? When is that coming up? How can we work together? Continue that line of communication. And for the earlier question about how do we hold them accountable without hurting that relationship, you do that by ensuring that you are both recognizing their support and allyship as a positive thing, and then offering your support to ensure that they are able to put forward those commitments and move forward on those commitments. And that means that in holding them accountable, you're also providing them with the resources and saying, hey, I'm here, we're here, the CFS is here, our organization is here to support you in asking this question. Here are some resources. Here are some background documents. Here's some evidence or data that supports our work, our position. And so thank you so much for asking that question. Here are some examples of how it could be phrased. Let us know how we can best support you. And when they do the thing that you've asked them to do, celebrate them, thank them, make it known that you see that their allyship and their support has had a tremendous impact on your advocacy agenda, and maintain that. As you do that over time, you will develop that relationship in a much more positive light, and you will have the opportunity to continue to rely on one another. You provide the information, you provide the analysis. They are able to use that to propel forward your advocacy agenda and bring it to decision-making spaces. In terms of how you discuss the issues or frame your proposals, talk about some of the key points. And so the lobby documents are going to be long. You don't have to read them. In fact, it's better if you don't. It's best if you highlight some of the key areas. And if there is follow-up, maybe they want to know specifically about one of your proposals, then get into some of those details, but tailor it as best you can, as we talked about previously, to their interest and to what they want to hear about the most, and what might be a portfolio item that relates to them. If they're the minister of such and such, maybe it's most relevant to them in that respect, or perhaps it's a interest from their personal life, from the research you did on their biography, or something else that you might have seen them comment on in the media more recently. It's also really important to recognize the impact of talking about what this looks like on the ground. So talking about the impact of the Canada Student Grants Program in your life, in the life of your classmates, of other students that are part of that constituency, adding a human element will bring that policy piece and that proposal from the abstract to the real and to the sort of impact that it is having on an everyday basis in people's lives. And you really want to like sort of highlight that human aspect of it as much as you can so that politicians can also better understand why these policies are important, why you're advocating on them, and how their support of it can also help support the constituencies that they represent, which includes students. Make sure you secure that commitment, highlight it, reiterate it in the meeting, and reiterate it in your follow-up with the MP or the senator. And finally, I wanted to really highlight as well that sharing your story is probably one of the most impactful and powerful pieces of your lobbying session. So as I mentioned, the human element will take the abstract policy proposal and make it more realistic and make it more real for that decision maker. And then as much as you feel comfortable talking about how some of these proposals could change your life or have changed your life, those are really important stories to bring to the table as well. And when you're talking about your own experience, especially if you are also one of their constituents, if you come from their riding or from their region, it gives them even more of an opportunity to really understand if it's an issue they're not familiar with, why it's so important, why we're talking about this, how it concretely changes people's lives, and how their advocacy is really critical and their support of this advocacy is really critical in moving forward this policy agenda. And make sure that you are highlighting how this impacts a variety of different experiences as well. And so you can talk about your own story. You can bring back some of the stories and experiences from some of the students and classmates that you've worked with in the past. And ultimately highlighting that human element is going to help add a lot more teeth and realism to the proposals that you're going to be putting forward. So let's talk about some of the traps that could come up in some of these meetings. For example, small talk. So you might end up in a meeting where you say hello, you get to the introductions, and you only have 30 minutes. So like time is critical, time is key. And in the beginning, you're talking through introductions and the member of parliament that you're meeting with or the senator starts talking to you about something else. Or they can dive really deep into something that would be categorized as small talk. For example, getting stuck in a conversation about the weather. You don't want to be stuck, if you only have 30 minutes, you don't want to be stuck in a conversation about the weather for 10 minutes. That's like a third of your meeting. You don't want that. And so you want to try to move things forward as quickly as you can. You can acknowledge their points, but make sure you really focus the majority of that meeting on your proposals. Similarly, they might say, I hear you want to talk about the Canada Students Grants Program. That's great. Have you heard about my initiative to support youth entrepreneurship? And they might start talking about their alternate proposals. It's really important, again, that you're able to have at least one member of your delegation, of your group, that is confident in redirecting and saying, that's great. We really want to talk about this. We would love to follow up with you on this at another time. Let's come back to talking about why it's important for us to expand the Canada Student Grants Program. So it's important to dodge those alternate proposals. And finally, they might want to just focus on very niche issues. And so this is something that, you know, it kind of sometimes falls into the category of small talk and alternate proposals, sometimes not. But the reality is that if it's distracting from your proposal, you don't want that. You want to come back to your issues. You have very limited time. You want to focus on the proposals and the priority areas that you walked into the meeting with, and you want to avoid any of those traps. And so politicians are great at talking. That's how they got elected. They're very personable. They're very charming. They want to talk. It's your role as an advocate to make sure that you're talking about your issues, not theirs. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of a practice session. And what I want to do is focus on the asks that you folks have as part of your lobbying work. One is around implementing a national tuition freeze. and the other is around expanding the Canada Student Grants Program. I know you also have many other priorities, but I picked just two for the purpose of this exercise, just to help illustrate and give us an opportunity to practice some of these skills. So these are the two asks that we are going to be practicing for our practice lobby session. Implementing a national tuition freeze, and we want to expand the Canada Student Grants Program. So for this session, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. So if I could get a volunteer that wants to practice their lobbying skills, that would be great. I see, Arpit, you have your hand up. Are you volunteering to be a volunteer for us?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, great. And did I say your name correctly, or would you mind just pronouncing your first name for me?
So I'm Arpit.
Arpit. Arpit, excellent. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So we're going to go through a scenario together. So I'm going to give you some background on a member of parliament, and what I want you to do, and I want everyone to do this as well. If you have a piece of paper or something, note your policy priorities and do this exercise along with us. I'm going to give you some background on this member of parliament, and then I'm going to ask you, Arpit, to think about how you might pitch in a lobby meeting the issue of a national tuition freeze, and or you could do both or just one, the expansion of the Canada Student Grant Program. So I'll give you the background, I'll give you a moment to kind of gather your thoughts, and then I'm going to ask you to give me your elevator pitch about how you might address this. Sounds good?
Yep, for sure.
Awesome. So this member of parliament, I'm just going to put it all up there, is a Conservative MP, so they're a member of the Conservative Party. They've been elected to represent the riding in the most recent federal election, so brand new from April. Prior to being elected, this member of parliament worked for a local real estate developer. So we found this out in our research. This member is also a big hockey fan. They are married and have two children who attend the local high school. Finally, this member of parliament has been appointed to the House of Commons Standing Committee on the status of women. So that's the background information. I'm going to give you about a minute to organize your thoughts, and then I'm going to ask you to give me an elevator pitch of your lobby issues for this MP.
National freeze on tuition.
Yeah, you could do the tuition freeze, the expansion of the Canada Student Grant Program, or you could do both if you want to.
Yeah. I think one of the ways that I definitely consider approaching this would be from the perspective of the groups that they would be supporting quite a bit. So, it's like an investment in real estate. Having the Canada Student Grant Program and a national tuition freeze is something that would be very much putting money back into the Canadian economy relatively quickly and getting people more skilled in various areas that the economy could use uh, all throughout various different industries, especially the industries that are the hardest to get into. We're talking your engineers, we're talking your sciences, your STEM, all your core stuff like that, because those are some of the most expensive that you could get into. You're not just looking at, your bachelor's degree, you're looking at your master's, you're looking at probably PhDs,
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna play the MP for a moment, and I'm gonna say I really like that you brought up that this is an investment. I completely agree with that. Can you tell me more about why you think this should be a public investment or should come out of the public purse?
Because the public is the group that benefits the most from this, right? This isn't something that is just like, uh, you know, if you're looking at this from an investment perspective, you're going to be looking at the costs, right? And on a personal level, we can agree that, there is going to be a significant upfront cost that your average Canadian who's, hardworking, young individual, might not be able to put up, right? Especially if you're looking at something like the medical field, you know, um, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in
Hmm.
student loan debt. And that's before you've even picked your specialty, right? You might be looking at, layers and layers and layers of training.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
excellent.
sorry.
Do you want to add sort of one last point? I want to get to the next one, but go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also definitely something that would affect groups like women and people of color
Hmm.
and minorities quite a bit because frankly, if you're a young woman in Canada, anywhere,
Hmm.
it's going to be hard for you to be able to justify that and face maybe starting a family or whatever you're looking for. And we've known that, a lot of women have to make that decision and face hurdles in their career,
Hmm.
especially around the age where, you might be looking at doing a master's program.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much, Arpit. Thank you for being our volunteer and the framing. And what I want to say that I really loved about that is that you took sort of the background piece about the sort of interest in investment and you crafted a message around that. And I really love at the end sort of bringing in a bit more of that gender analysis and gender lens. And so thinking of concrete commitment or something that you could ask as a follow-up, I think that that framing is really helpful. And then as that conversation continued, we just had a couple of minutes there. But if you have 30 minutes in that, you can definitely integrate an ask of given these gendered given the gender sort of impact and experience that can come with this, here's how perhaps you could bring up this issue in the next House of Commons Standing Committee meeting on the status of women. So I really love how you integrated that, and I think it's a really good example of crafting a pitch that fits the member. Okay, I'm going to ask for one more volunteer. I think we have time to do one more scenario. Is there somebody else that wants to give that a try as well? You just use the raised hand function to let me know. Not everybody at the same time. Okay, if everyone's shy, maybe what I'll do is I'll ask David or Mary, would either of you be willing to run an example for me so we can do one more scenario? Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you the background, and I'm going to give you a moment to gather your thoughts. Then I'm going to ask you to give me a pitch for how you might frame your advocacy issues. Okay? Okay. So our next MP is an NDP MP. And in the last election, they very narrowly held on to their seat. They have had this seat so now for about 20 years. So they've been around for a really long time. And in fact, the local student union in that area already has a friendly relationship with the MP from working together over the years. Prior to being elected, this MP worked as an educator in the public school system. And this MP has a key staff person, Jean, that has worked with them for almost their entire elected career. So there's the background. I'll give you a moment to gather your thoughts, and I'll ask for your pitch. Okay, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, please just give me the latter part of the background again, please. I think I missed some.
David, it might be a bit challenging hearing what I think your mic isn't working that well, but if it's agreeable, I can give a bit of an example as well. Um,
Sure.
sure. Oh,
Here, I'll put it back
yeah,
on for
if
you.
you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
So, how would you sort of walk into this meeting and what would be your elevator pitch?
Yeah, I think one of the things to go in with is like holding on to that friendly relationship and saying that it's very welcoming or reassuring to know that um you have been a long-standing MP that has been willing to work with us and has worked within the educational field for quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
and that we would like to continue to build upon that relationship and really make sure that students are aware that this is something that you're doing. So making sure that there's a strong platform that
Mm-hmm.
you're running on so that when they go out to vote, they know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you are doing to support them, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can continue to build on a um, mutual beneficial relationship, I guess is the best term. It would be more coherent than how I just worded it, but essentially
Yeah.
making it well known that the students' vote is very important to this person.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So I love that sort of in your framing, your making it very clear that the student constituency is an important constituency for this member because you're recognizing that though they've held on to their seat, it was not at all a landslide or an easy victory path to victory for them. And elected representatives have a vested interest in getting reelected. Typically they enjoy this work and they want to keep doing it. And so highlighting that as a strategy, I think is a very good one in this meeting, and it will give you a little bit of leverage in terms of then bringing in an ask. So, how can they continue to showcase their support by taking XYZ action? So, asking a question in the House of Commons is perhaps an ask that you can make of them, especially given they're an NDP MP. So, that means that they're not able to be in a committee right now because they lost party status. And so, but they can ask questions in the House of Commons. So you also have to tailor those asks based on what that member is able to do or not able to do based on the status of their party. So I know that it is noon and this workshop was scheduled to go to noon, but I know we also started a little bit later. And so if it's amenable to folks, perhaps we can just quickly go through the next scenario and then we'll just do a short Q&A. So we'll go until about 12:15. Is that okay? 12:15 Eastern? Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. And if you need to walk away for whatever reason, that's totally cool. Do your thing. But we'll make sure that we just get through the rest of this together. So thanks for your patience in that. All right. So I'm just going to quickly go through the last scenario. So I won't put anyone on the spot, but I'll give you some ideas about how I might have dealt with this. And you hear my lovely dog, Scott. She's also very excited about lobbying, evidently. So the last scenario was around a Liberal MP. And the background here is that this MP was reelected in the spring's federal election. They had actually planned not to run, but they threw their hat back in when Mark Carney became leader. And they ended up winning their riding handily. This MP has been appointed the Minister for Economic Development in their region, and they have held this file on and off during their elected career. This member is married and their partner works for a big corporate grocery chain in their executive office. So it's also helpful sometimes to know more about the families of these legislative decision makers to also understand potential angles. And this member of parliament has spent a lot of time volunteering for and promoting the local food bank. So they seem to be interested in food security. So, how I might approach a meeting like this is ensuring that, especially when we think about members who have taken on any ministerial roles, how can we specifically think about the proposals that we're making to craft a message box that meets the mandate? And so we would perhaps start by reviewing the mandate for the Minister for Economic Development. What is within that portfolio, and how does education or post-secondary education in particular relate to that? From there, I might make a similar argument to that first scenario around the economic investment opportunity in education. And I might specifically highlight the impact on, for example, gross domestic product, GDP in Canada, from having a highly skilled and highly educated workforce. I might even think about bringing in other global examples, because since this is a minister, they might be interested in increasing Canada's profile internationally. So maybe we could talk about other countries that highly invest in post-secondary and what the economic impact has been for them. And finally, there's this piece about food insecurity. Can I bring in some human stories about students utilizing food banks? I think we know many of those stories, right? And it comes with the work in this sector, because students are being gouged with high tuition fees and the increasing cost of living. The food insecurity issues are real. And so perhaps that's an opportunity for us to also outline some real human experience and talking about some human stories from the constituency that also highlight this issue and this need. Does anybody want to add to that, or even in the chat, anything that you might also have added as an angle for speaking to this MP? Arpit, go ahead.
I guess sort of another angle we could take, aside from just like what could be a direct line for like current students in Canada, it could be the desire to maybe attract talent from abroad, taking advantage of the it's not so great political situation down south. And the fact that there's, been a general speaking adversarial relationship down south between the government and post-secondary institutions, and sort of getting that talent into Canada, and then making sure that they have positions and jobs and, things that are available to them in these institutions, which will be a pretty massive change and pretty massive improvement, because finally we're in a position where you don't want to be going from north to south, it's from south to north.
I think that's a really great angle to bring in, and sort of talking again about some of that international piece. I think for a member with a high profile in a ministerial role is going to be very attractive for them, and it's going to be a really good hook to get them more interested in how their advocacy in this area could increase even their own profile within government. So that was a good point. Anybody else want to add to this? Okay. So lots of different ways that you could take this. And it's really important, again, to just keep thinking about crafting that message box in a way that both supports and uplifts the arguments that you're making, but also speaks to the unique person that you're dealing with. You don't want to craft the same pitch for everyone. You want to understand your issues and then craft it in a way that actually adds a human element and speaks to the human that you're speaking with, the member of parliament, the senator, and again, their staff. Oh, David, go ahead. Yeah.
I understand my voice was not clear, but I think now it's better. I was trying
Yes,
to
I can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and sorry for the first one. Yeah, so with this one, if I would want to pitch this, I'll start by, hey, say thank you for your support and deciding to run again to support the economic development in the region we find ourselves. We appreciate what you're doing, and not just you, with your family, your wife, also supporting with the grocery end. There's blah 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 regarding that part. And afterwards, I'll pitch it. I'll continue with the pitching from the contributions that have been made and link it into the food bank, the support that they are doing for the food bank and the need. Our students are also benefiting. So I'll just get it there and see how best we can establish it to get it to every institution in the province or in the region that we find ourselves. Yeah.
That is excellent. I really love that framing as well. And I think that you're really hitting the nail on the head in terms of bringing in and highlighting the constituency and how this is going to directly impact this decision maker. So that was awesome. Thank you for that. All right, so that actually brings me to the end of the slides that I'd prepared for this. And I do want to leave you with this note of encouragement and support that you've absolutely got this, whether it's your first time or your 15th time lobbying, it can still feel nerve-wracking, but I really want to encourage you and really hammer down this message that you probably know way more than these elected folks do about your issue. You are the expert in that space. And beyond knowing your proposals and the issues that you are putting forward, you know the human impact that they have in your life, in the life of your classmates and students from the campuses and communities that you come from. You know why this work is important and what it means to people across this country. And so know the expertise you bring into the room. And again, importantly, don't just come up with information, share accurate, real evidence-based info. And if you don't know it, take the moment to say, let's follow up. That's a great question. Let's have more conversations about it. You don't have to trip yourself up or feel nervous about trying to get things right in that moment. Lead with what you know, lead with your story, illustrate with the stories of those around you. And when in doubt, follow up. And follow up regardless and thank them for the conversation and outline next steps for how you want to move forward together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to see if you have any, in the last 5 minutes that we have together, any other questions or thoughts or feedback that you want to ask. So I'm looking at the Q&A and so can we focus on how we can assemble an effective profile? So we've talked a little bit about that thus far in terms of some of the research and background work that we want to do. I think you want to make sure that you're organized and you understand what your role is in the meeting. So I can't emphasize enough the prep that you do before and after, because you want to make sure that not only are you able to nail the different speaking points that you want to bring up in that meeting, you want to be clear on what your roles are before you go in so that everybody knows exactly what they're doing. And you want to be very clear on following up and ensuring that that politician, that political office knows that your organization is very serious about the proposals that you've put forward, and you're eager and keen to work with them to implement any commitments or ideas that were discussed during that meeting. And I think that's what's going to set you apart from other lobbyists who show up for the day and disappear. And, for them, the goal was the meeting. The goal is to report we had a good meeting and that's it. And they move on. For them, that's success. Your measure of success is not the meeting. It's a tactic that you're using to advance your political advocacy agenda. And so your work to follow up, to maintain that relationship, to continue to have those conversations with that member of parliament, with that senator, that's what's going to set you apart and help you build that effective profile. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to look through the chat and see if I've missed anything there. I don't see anything there. So are there any sort of final questions or thoughts that folks have? Oh, okay. I see another question here. I'm curious of how we would approach a representative with more sort of discriminatory or profit corporations over people viewpoints. If you have any insights into that, thank you. For sure. It is very likely that you will encounter politicians that have a very different viewpoint than you do on the world. And what I would say is going back to that slide about avoiding small talk and some of those alternate viewpoints, alternate proposals, bring it back to your issues. You do not have to tolerate any discriminatory behavior in a meeting. And so if that happens, you can definitely definitely absolutely shut that down. And if you don't feel comfortable anymore, you can also not continue that meeting. You can state that clearly. However, if the viewpoint that is being expressed is just one that doesn't actually fit with your analysis and the issue that you want to bring forward, you can very politely thank them for their contribution and bring it back to your issue. You don't have to entertain those conversations. You can very politely and very directly just say, thank you so much for that. We're actually here to talk about a national tuition fee freeze. Here's why it's important and relevant for your constituents in this riding. Here's how many people it impacts from your region. And here's how we would like to work with you to be able to advance this particular advocacy agenda. And it is true that even after a 30-minute pitch, you may not walk away with an ally, but at least you've educated that member on your issue and on their framing. And even if they're not willing to make a commitment to work with you further than that, again, education and educating members about your issues is one of the goals of a lobby session. And so if that is what you're able to achieve, that's okay. Not every meeting will include a commitment for follow-up action, but you can still follow up if a member of parliament or a senator did hear you out, did hear your entire proposal, thank them. And your follow-up could be as simple as, here is a copy of our proposals with more in-depth information. If ever you want to talk about these further, please let us know. You can reach us at XYZ, provide your contact information, and leave the door open for them to perhaps circle back and come back and want to talk to you more about one aspect or the entirety of your presentation. So I hope that answers that. The last question I see in here is that we should be holding whiteboard pregame. Yeah. So yeah, you should be doing that kind of like theory craft strategy. You should be thinking about how you want to bring sort of issues forward and what kind of goals you have in your organizing work so that you're able to actually think about how the lobbying fits as a tactic. Again, it's not the goal, right? Like we're not here because we want to have meetings and we want to, feel like we're networking and we get a nice picture and that's it. We are looking for a roadmap that helps bring these folks along in us being able to achieve your political advocacy goal and agenda. And so if the goal is we want a national tuition freeze in this country, then we need to be thinking of meeting with parliamentarians and senators as allies, as potential allies, to bring along with us on that journey, because they are the folks that can actually affect some of the change that we need to see happen through their role as representatives in the House of Commons and in the Senate. So I think that brings us to time. I just want to say thank you so much for the organizers in this space. Thank you, Vanessa, for the invitation. Thank you to the at-large, Mary and David, for the introductions, for setting us up in such a good way, and for doing those exercises with me. And I want to thank you all for attending, for being a part of this session, and wish you the best of luck in all of your lobbying endeavors. And I hope that this session has made you feel more confident in your expertise and in your leadership as student organizers in these spaces and as advocates in these spaces. You can absolutely do this work. And by leading with your heart and with your values, you will be successful in that. So thank you.
All right. William, thank you so much. You did justice to what you were supposed to do, and in fact, we appreciate it so much. I don't know if I can still see some questions in the Q&A session, but if there is, I'm pretty sure maybe you could um answer them before I continue. But if not, then okay, perfect. So I would want to say thank you all for joining our workshop today. We hope you all enjoyed and are leaving with new sets of skills and ideas. Do not miss the opportunity to exercise these skills at our local lobby weeks and wherever we find ourselves. And this is from November 24th to 27th. And we really hope to see each and everyone there. That's what we're hoping for. And with the kind of zeal that we came with, it is all good. We are learning. There is no wrong answer. Just as Billion said, you get there with confidence, you deliver. If you don't know, you don't know. If you do, you put in something that you think you know, but at least we go with the facts and not what we think. And for folks who have already applied, please note the following. And these prep sessions are still going to come on. Lobby Week info session and event onboarding. That will be October 24th at 1 p.m. ET. October 24th at 1 p.m. ET. And this communication would also be done via email, so we're going to get it. And this meeting is going to provide key logistical information and what to expect during the week. And there's also going to be a lobby document deep dive. We're going to dive deeper into the lobby document to know who we're meeting, what is going to happen, and how we're going to go about the individual that we're meeting. Just as Billion said, know about the person. So a detailed review of our key policy demands and briefing materials that will guide our meetings. And lastly, the role play practice section. We did a bit here, and we're going to continue with that, where we would have someone acting as the senator, the MP, and people will be communicating with that. The date will be communicated to members at the right time, so it will be discussed later, and we're going to get it. If you have not already registered, and you still would want to register after listening to this, you can go ahead. We have our LinkedIn, Instagram at cfs.fcee, and on TikTok, yeah, I think it was, thank you, Beryl. And on TikTok, we recently just joined. So we'll be documenting all our lobby week related activities there. So you can join us and just follow what we do there. Thank you all again for joining. And thank you again, Billion. You did such a great, great, great job. Hope folks have a wonderful rest of our day. It was awesome being here, and whichever thing that we've learned, let's keep it into practice. Also note that I think I spoke about the registration. Yeah. So that is actually the whole thing. We thank you all for participating. If you have more questions, feel free to send it to either the chairperson, Mary, or myself. We're going to pick it up from there, relate to Billion, and it will be responded to at the right time. Thank you all. I'll pass it on to Peril. Is that something that you want to say? Or if there is anything?
No thanks, but I just want to thank Villain for this amazing session, and I hope that you folks here are more enthusiastic about Lobby Week, and we can't wait to have you all there. But that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. If that is so, Madam Chairperson, Mary.
Yes, thank you all. Very much appreciate your time. Thank you to Billin. Be sure to keep an eye out for future events that we will be hosting, and I look forward to lobbying with you all.
And thank you, Vanessa, for organizing this with your team. We appreciate it so much, and we've enjoyed it, trust me, not only for the National Lobby Week, but also our locals and even in our schools, how to do things. It is all good. On that note, I will call the day off. This time off, not the full day, work continues. So I'll call the time off and see you later in our next meetings. If you got something good, you can just give me a thumbs up if you can, or say a goodbye. Bye. I forgot one thing to our interpreters. Thank you so much.